Hello, everyone. So I'm Cyborg. We have Jacob from Celestia. We have April from Neutron, Aidan from Stride, and you already know Ethan Buchman from Cosmos, but also from Informal System, the same company I work for. And today we have a great panel. I was very happy to see the speakers. We have basically all that side of the panel is Cosmos App Chain, and we have Jacob from Celestia with the rollups. And so we can all bully Jacob today. That's more or less what we're going to do. So I want to start with Ethan. He talked about the community computers. Now there's a new type of community computers. They're called consumer chains. And actually, Neutron and Stride are going to use them. Can you kind of define how consumer chains are different from regular sovereign app chains?
Yeah, yesterday I attacked Rich from Google for using the word consumer, so I'm a little bit sensitive to that term now. So I think we should call them partner chains or something else. We need to come up with new terminology. So the idea with these partner chains is that they can inherit security from the Cosmos Hub, right? So like I was saying, the sort of core idea in Cosmos was anyone can build a sovereign application-specific blockchain. So rather than just deploying a smart contract onto an existing blockchain that has to inherit the sort of political economy from that chain, you can define your own application-specific chain with its own political economy, complete end-to-end vertically integrated stack, completely tailored to your application. With shared security and these partner chains, you can do the same thing, but now you can inherit your security and your validator set from the Cosmos Hub, and you can sort of become part of that community, right? So you're giving up some of your sovereignty, but you still control a lot of the stack, a lot of the vertical integration. You can still tailor your application however you want, build it in different languages, and so on. And then rollups sort of take that a step further. They allow you, to inherit a different kind of security and use a different sort of what we call a data availability layer. We'll let Jacob sort of get into that more. And so again, these are just different places in the trade-off space in terms of sovereignty, right? So you've got sort of full sovereignty, full control, application-specific chain. You give up a little bit of sovereignty to inherit security. That's this sort of partner chain. And then you can give up sort of more sovereignty in a different way. Now, sovereignty is not just like a single-dimensional thing. So I don't want to talk about it like just on a unidimensional spectrum. It's actually high-dimensional, and maybe we can get into that. But with rollups, you can sort of have an easier time. It makes it easier to deploy an application tailored to your needs while inheriting more of the sort of network stack from a larger blockchain. So these are all different places, different trade-offs in the sovereignty spectrums.
Jacob, do you actually? I think it would be useful for the audience to define what is a rollup. From like rollup 101 kind of class. How would you define a rollup, and how would you, since you work for Celestia, you can also explain what you do for Celestia. How would you define that, and how do rollup work with Celestia at a very high level?
Yeah, sure. And thanks for having me. So I think if you back up, like just at the highest level, what it is ultimately is it's a way to outsource computation from, say, like Ethereum or like any chain, right, and put it on another chain. And so originally, kind of like the basically get like the properties of compression and stuff, and not have to execute those all on, like, say, one chain like Ethereum or Solana or whatever. And so what that means in practice, like when rollups sort of first came out on Ethereum, basically there's sort of the idea of like, well, you would use like Ethereum. You basically use Ethereum for like settlement. So you either posting like validity proofs or proofs of correctness in a ZK rollup, or you're doing like dispute resolution on like fraud on fraud proofs. And sort of people are familiar with sort of like the 7-day like dispute window. But what that actually means is basically that you basically are taking allows you to basically take your assets, and you also valuable state, et cetera, like and use that and do computation on it on another chain, basically. And then basically in Ethereum, you sort of have this model where basically the smart contract that serves as the bridge is basically serving as the helps determine it basically determines the canonical version of that chain, but you're not like sort of like basically you're not basically sort of like basically moving basically the progress of that that rollup does not depend on doesn't is basically compressed. It doesn't have to like post every block to Ethereum. It basically just has to do it at like sort of a certain number of intervals. So basically, you basically share security with Ethereum in that case. And then what Celestia sort of does is, well, it says, you don't actually need to use like, something that's not basically like Ethereum isn't optimized right now for that approach. And basically, Celestia is sort of like, well, actually what rollups, like if you want to build, if you think about this from first principles, you can actually take basically what they need, what rollups need to scale and basically share security, et cetera, is actually just one big shared data layer. They don't actually need to have sort of like this chain that basically is, where you're defining, basically the canonical chain. It can actually happen via light clients on the rollup itself, on the rollups themselves. And what's really cool about that is that it basically what's really special about that is that it gives you a lot more control over like the types of execution environments that whatever stack, whatever you want to you can bridge, you can sort of customize your bridging experience. That you can bridge to wherever you want. With all the different trade-offs, and it's kind of like more like the Cosmos, basically more like the Cosmos vision. In fact, Celestia itself is a Cosmos chain. But one thing to note is that Celestia itself doesn't really have opinions about what data it's making available. It actually, in the sense that like it could, you can integrate with Optimism, you can integrate with zk Sync, you can write your own rollup framework, and you can basically like have build your own settlement layer. You can not have settlement at all, and it looks more like sort of a standalone Cosmos chain. So it's kind of like a whole choose your own adventure approach to building a blockchain, and it's just a lot less opinionated about like what developers should do. That said, we do have like a rollup SDK called Rollkit that basically it basically allows you to take, say, any Cosmos chain basically and swap Tendermint for Sequencer, and eventually also it'll have like clients, so all sorts of, but it also runs a light node of Celestia. I didn't really get into how Celestia sort of DAS part works, which is data availability sampling part works, but it's basically sort of like the core technology that makes this different from like say just like a storage network or something where you don't really, you otherwise have to basically run a full node of the chain that you're getting a security from, which is kind of like what happens in more in like the Cosmos Hub model, I think. But yeah, I don't know if that's a sufficient explanation.
I think that was a good explanation. Yeah, we're gonna have Neutron got started about a year ago, I think now, maybe a little less. And you guys already knew that Celestia was coming. Celestia wasn't live, obviously. It's still not live. I think it's coming this year. But you guys knew that was on the way, and there was also Arbitrum and Optimism, like already in the works. And still, you chose to go for an app chain, for a Cosmos app chain. So can you explain a little bit more about that decision? Was it even on the table? And if it was, like, what was the different trade-offs that you guys talked about at Neutron?
Yeah, for sure. So Neutron is a smart contract platform that does two things. It provides your applications with a high degree of security, and it provides them with a lot of cross-chain infrastructure, right? That's what we built. That's what we wanted to build. And to be able to do that, we needed to choose the right stack, right? And replicated security and going for that was a decision that we made for basically 2 to 3 reasons. First, we wanted to leverage IBC. IBC is a stack that's extremely powerful, that has tremendous potential in enabling deep cross-chain integration between various applications and blockchains. And doing that with a Cosmos SDK blockchain was kind of like the natural way to approach it. But we also wanted that chain to have a high degree of security, because if you are to build an application that's going to be widely successful, you probably don't want it to be cheap to corrupt or capture. And so bootstrapping this degree of economic security traditionally takes a lot of time, because you're creating a new token, and then that token's market cap depends on the market, which is not something that you can at least fully engineer. And so replicated security allowed us to know that on day one, any application would have tremendous runway in terms of their ability to scale in TVL and in importance before capture would even be something that they would have to worry about. So I think that's one of the strengths of replicated security. The other one is that we see Neutron as kind of like a matrix, something that is designed to bring together the users and the applications that already exist in Cosmos, as well as new ones that will launch on the platform. And to be able to do that to the best of the project's ability, it needed to have some degree of credible neutrality so that it could be seen and recognized by the rest of the ecosystem as not a competitor, but something that they could leverage in order to bring their protocols together with other app chains, to bring their protocols to new audiences, and so basically so that it could serve as kind of like a unifying place in the ecosystem that would help people kind of like join Cosmos and not have to be overwhelmed by the complexity of learning to use IBC, hopping across chains, because now they could access all of these application services like Osmosis and others from one chain without having to change chains in the wallets or whatever. And so that credible neutrality and that kind of like central place in the ecosystem is another thing that's pretty interesting by replicated security, because it allows you to essentially form this political and economic bond very deeply with the Cosmos Hub, which is the first and kind of like central chain in the ecosystem. And so those are kind of like some of the points that made us choose to go for replicated security.
Cool. Yeah, I think it's important to talk about that, because a lot of people think Celestia is going to eat Cosmos lunch, right? They think Celestia is going to come up and then no one is going to build app chain anymore. Everyone is going to start a rollup because it's easier. And so I think Neutron is a good example that there's still like benefits to app chains that rollup don't have. Stride is another example. Stride is you guys chose the Cosmos Hub as a security provider for, I think, a different set of reasons. So maybe you can define, Aidan, you can define what is Stride, what are you guys doing in Cosmos, and also why you guys chose to go that way.
Yeah, totally. So first, Stride is a liquid staking app chain in Cosmos. So we only do liquid staking. The philosophy of Stride is minimalism, security, and UX. So we really just focus on those three things: minimalism, security, and UX. And building as an app chain allows us to really drive into these three things. So Stride is very minimal. There's no applications built on top of it. We just provide liquid staking to the Cosmos ecosystem. Building an app chain also lets you, I think, really tailor the UX of the product, because you can go all the way down the stack. You can build in like really interesting features that make the product feel more like using something from Web 2 maybe, or something that people are more accustomed to. For example, Stride doesn't charge gas fees, so you don't have to like go to a DEX and get STRD before you use the protocol. You can just onboard, super straightforward. Finally, security is a really big one. For liquid staking, I think it's sort of obvious. Like the TVL of liquid staking can get massive. I recently saw a stat that liquid staking TVL surpassed DEX TVL for the first time. So pretty exciting. I think it sort of signifies two things: like DEXs are becoming more capital efficient, but also more people are using liquid staking. So that's why we launched Stride as an app chain in Cosmos. So today we support 7 liquid staking tokens and many more to come. And the reason that we put up this proposal to do interchain security is it's all about economic alignment and economic security. So the first point I think has been talked about a lot, like the economic security. Stride's market cap, Stride's market cap isn't directly tied to the TVL and the protocol. But like in theory, it sort of should be, or ideally it would be, because if Stride's TVL gets really big and the market cap is low, there's this economic attack vector where maybe someone buys up a bunch of protocol tokens and attacks the liquid staking provider. So there's a little bit of insecurity there. So the first part of ICS is, and the reason we put up this proposal is to inherit the economic security of the Cosmos Hub to make Stride really safe and sound to use. So institutions, whales, all of these people can feel comfortable using Stride as a liquid staking provider and not having to worry about these weird economic attack vectors. But the second point, which I think is also interesting and maybe less talked about, or hasn't been talked about as much, is the economic alignment. So in this proposal, Stride actually asked for atoms from the Cosmos Hub community pool, not to be owned by Stride. They'd be owned by the Cosmos Hub, but they would LP the ST atom pool on Neutron, actually. And the idea is, the Cosmos Hub provides economic security. They provide maybe this DeFi service, so they provide an LP base to build a DeFi ecosystem on top of. And in return, Stride provides fees. So Stride earns fees on liquid staking, and it will pass those back to the Cosmos Hub. So you get this positive feedback loop, and sort of everyone's aligned, which is really nice. Yeah,
it's a win-win-win. You have the Cosmos Hub winning, you have the Stride winning, and you have the validators winning through extra revenues. Ethan, so actually talking about winning, so we have app chains now. We have partner chains. You just put a new term for that. It was consumer chain up until now, and provider chain for the Cosmos Hub. How does that generate revenue for the Cosmos Hub? This is a panel about hub utility. How does the hub grow from these consumer chain that choose to adopt in-chain security?
Yeah, so the hub is an application-specific blockchain. It hosts a very simple application, and because it doesn't have a smart contract environment on it, it's difficult to upgrade the application of the Cosmos Hub. And so if you want to deploy new services, it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of sort of political alignment. There's been, if you've paid attention to Cosmos Hub governance, it can be quite controversial at times, and people have proposed things that get shut down. We proposed a big proposal back in the fall, Atom 2.0, and it got shut down. And so, it can be difficult. And so what's really powerful about interchain security is it opens up a development environment around the Cosmos Hub for the first time that allows development to proceed in a sort of modular way, so that you can deploy new services and new features. They don't have to go directly onto the Cosmos Hub itself. They can be deployed sort of as their own processes, as their own blockchains that inherit security from the Cosmos Hub, but are still somewhat independent from it and can fail kind of independently from it. And so the surface area of the Cosmos Hub remains small. We have to add this interchain security feature, what we call replicated security is the first version of it. But it allows other services and other features to launch sort of separate from it, inheriting security from the hub. And so that allows the hub to start to offer many new services and applications in its arsenal, like Stride and like Neutron and like others to come. There's a sort of network effect there because, like Aidan was just saying, there can be alignment between those different applications that are using security from the Cosmos Hub. They can complement each other and work together in different ways to sort of build up this, what we call this economic zone around the Cosmos Hub, where some of the proceeds and the revenues from those applications can actually flow back up to the staked Atom on the Cosmos Hub. So by the security of the Cosmos Hub is provided as a service to these partner chains, and the partner chains compensate the validators and the delegators for the security service they're providing in tokens or revenue or fees or whatever it may be. And so each chain that's launching proposes its own sort of compensation scheme, its own formula for how fees or revenue is going to flow back up to the Cosmos Hub, and we'll probably see experimentation and sort of diversity in that over time. Already we've seen slight differences between what Neutron and Stride are proposing based on their own sort of structures, but that's just two application-specific chains. There's sort of likely to be more to come. Now, this isn't infinitely scalable, so unlike Celestia, which actually does provide, part of what's so unique and powerful about Celestia is that it's a very scalable architecture, right? They've got this whole data availability sampling thing. They can actually scale with the number of validators that allows many, potentially billions of rollups to launch. Whereas with interchain security right now, we're looking at 10. We'll be happy with 10 application-specific chains leveraging security from the Cosmos Hub. People are like, oh, that's a joke, and the Celestia guys, oh, you little babies, you can only have 10 secured chains, and we're working towards billions, and that's great. We're all big fans of Celestia and what's coming there, but we're gonna go one step at a time, enable these different application chains, have them kick back a sort of revenues to the Cosmos Hub, and grow from there. And hopefully we'll see in the future synergies between Cosmos Hub and Cosmos Hub app chains and Celestia and the rollups that will launch using Celestia. But again, there's as we're sort of hearing, there's a bit of a difference between the kind of sophistication you might need to have or want to have in an application-specific chain, even one secured by the Cosmos Hub, and a rollup which is designed to be a lot more seamless, a lot more simple, a lot easier to get started and launch. And so if you're just looking to get started quickly, it's easy to launch with Celestia. Of course, once Celestia is live. But if you're looking for sort of more sophisticated, more advanced kind of end-to-end integration, you can build an app chain, but you can still inherit security from the Cosmos Hub. And of course, you'd be expected to compensate for the security you're inheriting.
Yeah, so I think you did the job of Jacob here. You gave Celestia's pitch on his behalf. That's great.
Celestia a bit.
You were supposed to represent the Cosmos Hub today. But so, Jacob, let's actually ask you. So, what do you see? So, you see some app chains going for the Cosmos Hub security, or even launching as full sovereign chains in Cosmos. What do you think as Celestia comes to life and starts getting rollups, and there's rollup kits, and it gets easier to launch these applications? what do you see are going to be the decision maker for chains to just keep doing app chains or start doing rollups? So like, what do you see as the pros and cons of each options?
Yeah, and also before I say that, I think I actually, we don't really even, I guess we don't think about the ways that we sort of are competitive or in any way with the hub. I think we think more about like, well, can we use the hub for things like settlement, for bridging, for secure bridging, like access to, like if the hub provides valuable services to chains, then it's very likely that like when someone spins up a new rollup, like when you spin up a new rollup, that's not on say Ethereum, you basically have to solve this massive bootstrapping problem, right? Like you have to get liquidity, you need to have you basically need like wallets, explorers, all this kind of stuff. Like there's this whole set of things, right? And the biggest one in my view, from looking at it pretty closely, is that you give up when you leave Ethereum is this like settlement property, is like access to liquidity to dexes that have sort of accumulated a bunch of value. And so to me, if the hub accomplishes that, then which I think is very seems to me like it's on the path to that. It's a very valuable sort of port of call for rollups, or place to either sort of have settled rollups from, or to just use as a bridging hub. Because when you're a new rollup, you otherwise have to sort of figure out your bridging story. You have to figure out how you don't necessarily want to have to run a you don't actually necessarily want to have to the whole point of rollups that you do this quickly. And so set this up, you can set up a blockchain really quickly. And so it's you just don't really want to have to worry about managing some complex web of connections or whatever. It's you just would rather use something like the hub or whatever to sort of bootstrap. And so to me, that's sort of how we think of it. One of our taglines is modularism, not maximalism, and we really do think that. We actually really do want to use the hub for those things. And so, but I'd say in terms of the developers that I see sort of choosing one or the other or something like that, I actually don't really see that at all. Almost never. I almost usually see people doing totally different things that sort of have been hard to do in Cosmos to date. Especially things in the folks at Argus are building this sort of this thing they call the World Engine. It's basically this whole on-chain gaming sort of platform with its own settlement, its own a whole set of things that are very optimized for that use case. And they could have they could certainly do it as an app chain, but with Celestia they can just go straight to they can actually don't need settlement. They can just go straight to having a sovereign rollup. They can connect it to a couple chains, and that's that, right? And so to me, that's sort of what I see when you talk to developers, you talk to people building applications. It's there's people who just have different set of goals. That said, there are a lot of missing pieces still in the rollups, in the rollup stack, not just on building on Celestia, but also on Ethereum, that make it harder to basically to sort of give up the things that the existing sort of Cosmos stack provides. So decentralized sequencing is very, very nascent. And so if you want to do DeFi on a rollup, you don't really have the sort of natural committee of your validator set. You don't have sort of the true pre-Celestia block, pre-finality window, fraud-proof window, so censorship, real censorship resistance, right? So there's a lot of different things just with MEV that need to be figured it out, right? And so that all of that is going to be could be take quite a long time, and I don't really and we're working on it every day, and in our ecosystem is, but we don't really even think about sort of we just sort of think about it as when. If there are people who are sort of choosing one or the other, we'll cross that bridge, I guess. But I don't it's just not really what we sort of think, what we worry about.
So we're all one big happy family.
Yeah, that's how we see it.
I think we'll cross that bridge. I think we'll cross that bridge at some point. But I think there will be some, there are clearly some different pros and cons on each side. But you're right. There's mostly opportunities right now, and I think Neutron. I read a bunch about Neutron, and I think you guys have this idea of being at the same time a smart contract permissionless platform where people can launch a smart contract. At the same time, I think there's an idea of providing a settlement layer potentially for Celestia's rollups. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Neutron's mission, right, is to try and give developers the easiest and best execution layer for their applications, so that they can build, focus on building their applications, don't have to deal with a bunch of infrastructure questions or cross-chain infrastructure questions. And the L1 that we've built goes into that direction by abstracting a lot of the cross-chain complexity from their work. Now, deploying on a smart contract platform, you lose a lot of the customizability and some of the powers of app chains, right? And so kind of like reconciling this trade-off, providing like an alternative solution to the app chain thesis and to the need for customizability and control over the stack of your application is one thing that we think rollups can solve for pretty well by providing a trade-off between like full sovereignty and customizability, but also convenience and integration with an existing network of infrastructure and services, and like application rollups basically. Application-specific rollups basically help you strike that balance, and having on the one hand the validator set of the Cosmos Hub, and on the other hand the awesome tech that Celestia is building and helping like make rollups way easier, quicker, snappier to deploy, is something that we think can provide a really, really good product at the end of the day that would enable a developer to come around and basically launch a blockchain for their application, with that blockchain being like a rollup that settles on another one, uses yet another one for data availability. But what matters at the end of the day is that each pieces of this stack is optimized for what it's doing, and in that sense, that's kind of like in Celestia's modular thesis, right? So you would inherit censorship resistance from the hub and its validator set. You would inherit security, like performance, customizability from the rollups and Celestia, and yeah, I think that's a win-win situation, and I think that's a pretty good stack that I'd probably be interested in building in myself. So
I think it's a good example of a blockchain where you're going to have Celestia. The growth of Celestia is going to actually be positive for the Cosmos Hub, in the sense that the more rollups settle to Neutron, the more Neutron pays to the Cosmos Hub, and the more the Cosmos Hub succeeds. And also, I mean, this was a good point. Like all of these rollups on Celestia are going to be connecting to the Cosmos Hub. That's why it's named the Hub, by the way. Like the Hub routing idea, where all these IBC connection would be going through the Hub. That would be in a world where we have millions of rollups. That's much more impactful than just 50 sovereign chains as we have at the moment. Maybe, and I think we are almost up on time. But Aidan. So just so people understand, what the revenue model looks like, can you, since your proposal went up this morning or yesterday for onboarding on chain security, can you be a bit more specific about what kind of revenues Stride is going to be sharing with the Cosmos Hub?
Yeah, totally. So there are four sources. It is TX fees, MEV, liquid staking fees, and inflation. So because Stride's an app chain, there's inflation every year. New Stride tokens come into circulation. 15% of those will go to the Cosmos Hub. 15% of TX fees and MEV will go to the Cosmos Hub, and 15% of liquid staking fees. So currently, Stride earns a 10% fee on all liquid staking yield. So currently, Stride supports 7 liquid staking tokens: Atom, Osmo, Juno, Evmos, Luna, etc. And of that 10% fee, 15% will go to the Cosmos Hub. So if you're staking Atom, hopefully soon you'll start to earn like Evmos, Luna, Osmo, all of these additional staking rewards. Maybe one day Celestia, yeah.
Another one. Okay, I think we're up on time. But thanks everyone for coming today to the Cosmos panel.